First of all, thanks for this topic, because if you knew me in high school, time spent outside the classroom was just the perfect topic for me. So I kid. Yeah, I think, like there's definitely a lot of questions about, what's important, what's better than what, how should we be making decisions? There's only so many hours in the day. There's school, there's co-curricular, there's extracurricular. I saw some at least one in the chat that I thought was a good question, but ultimately we get some flavor of what are colleges looking for. And I hear you. Like, it is such a stressful process. And I just answered a question in the chat. When it comes to like policies and how schools use things, you're always going to hear this answer in these college panels. It depends. And really, there's no shortcut for getting the answers for your individual schools, which is why finding an appropriate sized list, leveraging the expertise of your counselors. And let me say that again, leveraging the expertise of your counselors. They do this all the time. Every year they hit the reset button, they do it again. Leverage that expertise to know that you have a balanced list, but you also have some schools that are fitting some of the things that you're valuing and that you're sharing. College admissions is not a game to be won. And I know it's difficult to hear that and then see all of the stresses around us and look to our left, look to our right. Shame on us in the college world and elsewhere. We've amped this up. And so I think the most important thing that everyone here can take away is that, I know a lot of successful people who did not go to college right away, who did not go to a name brand college. I don't want to say anything mean, but I know some people who have some really impressive names on their diplomas who are still figuring things out. So I think it's really important for you to head into this process thinking about, what do I value? And let that be the driver of the process. And so as you think about what you value, that should be the thing that you use to help you answer those difficult questions along the way. Should I take AP Physics, or should I stay in chorus because I've done chorus for 3 years? That's a question. Really, if you're looking to a college to answer that question, you probably should A, take chorus because it sounds like that's what you want to do, and B, stop asking colleges that question. We'll answer it and we'll try to give you an honest answer, but follow your heart. Do the things you want to do, because if you do, and if you work with your counselors and you do the homework you need to do through this process, you're going to find a list of incredible schools that are perfect for someone like you with your interests. And maybe that's WPI. Maybe it's Whittier. Maybe you are heading down to Hawaii and you're going to surf and study, macroeconomics with, a dual degree in Chem Eng. There's so many possibilities and so many different possibilities at each institution that, Falone really talked about the broad aspect of diversity. That's what this should be about. You are a distinct person with a distinct set of interests. You should follow those interests and help them guide you. And so as you think about those decisions outside, there's no magic answer. Even as we review applications, we're not looking for a specific number of AP courses in that curriculum, or a number of activities, or the number of years, or leadership positions. Be you. I think that's the thing. Students who know themselves, who are authentic, who share the things that they like and that they do, the things that take up their time, that helps us answer so many questions. We all are blessed to work at some pretty fantastic institutions that really invest in the student experience, and we can't do all things. So if you love, equestrian activities, WPI is not the place for you. And I want you to know that. I don't want you to go take something else, try to impress us. Go to Skidmore, go find that place that's perfect for someone who likes that. It's going to have the opportunity. So I don't want to be the dead horse, but really that is so important, because I think that's where so many of us can go wrong as we go through this process is trying to find that last thing to polish the resume. The other thing I really want to say is that anything that takes up your time outside of the classroom is something we want to know about. Very often the things that get, undershared are, work or volunteering in the community, jobs, just a regular old job, caring for relatives, elderly family members, ailing family members, young siblings. That stuff's so important. That speaks to who you are. It speaks to your values. It speaks to the context in which you're navigating your high school career. So, those are my pieces of advice. And the last thing I'll say is that, it's really important not to overload. I think we're seeing right now, record pre-pandemic, we're seeing a record level of students disclosing mental health issues, struggles, anxiety. The pandemic has only caused that to increase. Rest, balance, self-care, these things are so important. And really, especially during the college admissions process where you have the stressful process, right? Lean on your experts, find balance, follow your values, and make sure you're making time for yourself and your family and friends. You're about to hit this transition, especially if you're looking at a residential school. Even if it's in your backyard, you're not going to go home. Things are going to change. And so you've got to find that balance to love the time with the people who matter the most to you while you have it, and appreciate that transition and all the new exciting things that are going to come.
Thank you, Andrew. To open up, we are now in the open Q&A portion. So for those who, we definitely appreciate you've been putting questions there. Now we're going to open it up. We know that
Patrick, I was actually in the middle of getting ready to type an answer to this question that Tim put up there, so I can answer that.
Sure, yeah, you can do that. Go ahead.
I'm sure all of us can speak to this question. We get it a lot. No offense, especially at the private schools. They want to know, how the rigor here is looks versus like the standard public school that may not be as rigorous. And, also the question about, inflated GPAs and things like that. I would just say at many places, first off, I don't think a lot of places just take the GPA that's on the high school transcript and, say that that's your GPA. A lot of us go deeper than that and actually look at the actual grades, your grade trends, whether you improved, remain steady, or if you dipped. We do look at rigor. So, but the way we look at rigor is not just literally the number of honors or AP classes you took, but what did you do in the context of what was provided to you. So, if you're at a school that has a lot of great opportunities, offers a lot of honors AP courses, the expectation may be for you to take advantage of that and take as much of that as you can handle, versus someone who may be at a school that doesn't offer as much. Those students may not necessarily get dinged for that, but we'll look at, what did they do in context, in their own context. So, just on the surface, a student who only has maybe 3 AP classes in comparison to some of the schools at other places, that may look weak. But if you see that they only offered 4 or 5, taking 3 out of those really shows that the student may be pushing themselves. And so, again, the best advice we give with respect to that is take the most challenging curriculum that's available to you that you can still be successful in. Because the other question often comes up, is it better to get an A in a regular class or a B in an advanced class? And the typical answer is it's better to get an A in the advanced class. So, so if you don't feel like you can, perform to your normal level in those top classes, dial it back a little bit. Because ultimately you're, especially for some of these selective places, you're not going to get credit for just taking a tough class if you don't perform.
Okay. What is the best way to learn about a college now, given that in-person visits might not be possible, for a consideration from a high school perspective to use university websites? So I think this is interesting, right? We're thinking about, Nick, I'm going to call back to what you kind of talked about, right? We're at this interesting time and the pandemic has shifted in terms of it's right 2 years, right? We're approaching that 2-year anniversary of where it seemed like the time stopped and we're like, what's happening? And now we're getting to this place of things are opening up. You can do visits, but I don't think this is going to go away, right? Think about this virtual experience. I don't think from the college perspective, I can't imagine that this is going to be, we're just going to you're probably already thinking about what fall recruitment is going to look like, right? Are you going to just, is it going to continue to be a mix of both, or is it going to be, are we just going to do virtual depending on how far a place is going to be? So I think this question can even be stretched to think about how now with the new, resources and tools available, how do you find balance between, okay, it's not necessarily that, sure, if you have the resources, you have the time, but you can be smarter too with this technology. So anyone that can, can talk to that. I think it'd be really important. Now we have spring break coming up, right? Families might be thinking about plans, right? Might be thinking about, well, this is how it used to be done when older sibling, older cousin went a couple years ago. But perhaps you have new insight and thoughts as you're seeing how things have shifted on your end.
I'll jump in to the question: how should a prospective student, like, how do you learn about a college? I definitely agree. College websites can be a hit or miss, more than we'd like it to be. But I think this is where, for one, especially for your school, your college counselors, well before COVID, have seen a variety of college campuses firsthand. So as Andrew and Falone have been encouraging, and I will too, like, very much utilize your resources in your college counselors. I think other ways to learn about colleges, now more than ever, I wish that I had managed to mobilize an alumni program around admissions in a way that we could only dream, because having alumni around the globe for all of us, it has been very beneficial. If there are people that we want students to be able to connect with without making it to the campus itself. So I think you should still use websites. I mean, if the website speaks to you or doesn't, probably says something to you about the school itself. This is also a two-way street in that universities have needed to stretch and be creative in ways that we haven't had to think before. And so I've been just completely in awe of the creative ways that schools have availed themselves to students. And so, this has been an opportunity for us to be creative from all ends. But I would definitely, if nothing else, I'd come back to your college counseling resources if you're feeling a little stuck and be like, I'm really trying to get to know this school. Any ideas? There are some really terrific networks that I would hope that you're able to tap into.
Andy, Falone, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll just add, the only thing that worries me about the ways in which our offices have adapted to COVID and as we approach the future, there are more options to connect with us, which I think is a positive. But there's this term called the paradox of choice. And if you have so many choices, you can overwhelm yourself, and that will only lead to more anxiety. And so I think that it's really important to leverage these new opportunities in the ways that make sense for you, but don't use them as a way to do even more college search than you may have work than you may have otherwise planned for. I think it's really important for students and parents to really set the ground rules for a healthy process. So think about, what are the boundaries? How are we going to communicate about colleges? What's a general timeline we can agree upon? The best advice I've heard, the past couple of years come from a student. And they said, I was getting really stressed out about my parents asking me about college all the time, junior year. And I knew it was only going to get worse as I headed into senior year. And they stepped back and they said, let's just pick a time. Let's pick a day and a time where I know I'm going to get bombarded with these questions. I'll give it to you. I'll answer any question. I'll be prepared with things. But then if I, as the student, want to talk about colleges outside of that, that's also okay. And so I think confining, the amount of time and energy you're going to put into things, finding that right number of schools you're going to apply to, because really this process, the outcomes are best for the people who focus on quality, not quantity. So quality of, your research into schools, quality of, a balanced list informed by your counselors, and quality of the way in which you make that final decision. And so I think that, that's just a really important piece to keep in mind, is that you can easily do more. And while you think you might be getting ahead, it can actually lead to more anxiety and difficult choices. So try to find that balance that works for you, while leveraging the things that maybe, instead of having to drive off to someplace, you can hop on a 45-minute Zoom or a virtual tour to know if you want to invest that time and money into traveling to that school.
Falone, anything you want to add to that?
Andrew said earlier that it's important, especially nowadays, we're seeing more and more students. These are stressful times without the college process. So what I like that Andrew just said now is really just speaking to protect your mental health and Again, there's probably no way to not have any anxiety in this process, especially if there's school